Hello, I'm Jan Brereton. I'm here today to talk about Blazing Saddles, which is an all-ability network of cycling hubs which was developed by Fabb Scotland. Now, we started way back in 2013 when we applied for funding for a van and fleet of bikes, which we then took out to local authorities to make them aware of how you could make cycling accessible to everyone without making any assumptions that people with disabilities would be unable to go cycling. Where we are at now is that we work in partnership with several local authorities across Scotland. We've developed a sustainable hub within 14 local authorities and would like to develop right across Scotland. We've done this by taking the van and bikes out and then sort of showing people how you make cycling accessible. Now, by doing that, they then see what is achievable and set up as a more sustainable hub. You'll see a little bit more about this when we show some videos shortly. Accessible cycling is when you can go to a park or a venue where there are bikes that suit your needs as well as the rest of the family, so that you can go cycling with family and friends together. So this may mean that you need a semi-recumbent or a tandem, or it may mean that you just need a solo bike, but the bottom line is that you can go to that venue knowing that you can book that cycle and go for a ride. There are benefits to everybody being able to go cycling together, and this includes health and well-being, insofar as you're going cycling with your friends and family and you're going together. But in addition to that, when you start going cycling with friends, they begin to enjoy cycling too because they're able to go with you. So therefore, sort of by making cycling accessible, you can go cycling together. On top of that, as you improve, you will find that you want to go further afield. And if people do want to go further afield, are there routes available that are accessible? Can we make active travel accessible to people with disabilities? Because without any doubt in my mind, all the stuff that we've been doing with Blazing Saddles, and more recently the sort of visiting these hubs, I have found that demand outweighs supply. And it is therefore really important to me that we get this right. But over the last few months, we have visited 3 of our all-ability cycling hubs to see what's happening where they are. We've taken some short films about that and we'd like to show you them now. So you'll be visiting Perth, Falkirk and West Lothian.
So Liv Active Leisure is a leisure trust and we aim to provide activities for all abilities, one of which is the all-ability cycling. So we have a range of different bikes that will allow anybody to come down and give it a try. It just provides that opportunity for everyone to experience cycling, and we find that it gets a really positive result from a lot of people. We're very lucky in where we are, right on the North Inch, because we have a lovely space that we can cycle around very safely. Storage is quite an issue, but we do have big containers that we can pop our bikes in because they are large bikes. It's not been without some challenges, but hopefully we've overcome a lot of them. We've had many people coming along and we've had very many successes with people. For example, we've had people that have came along who have been completely confined to a wheelchair, not been overly keen to begin with to go onto a bike, but we've started with a side-by-side, for example, where they've sat next to their carer or a family or friend and had a cycle round. They've then decided, I can move my legs a little bit, or yeah, I would like to give a different try. So for example, we have Jerry.
Back in 2015, I had a sudden change in health where I lost all my mobility, put a lot of weight on, and then I had to get care support. And one of my carers told me, do you realise you could go biking? And I thought, oh, go on with you, you know, I can't move my legs, I'm in a wheelchair. She said, no, hand crank biking. So we arranged an appointment with Bell's Sports Centre. I came up and I saw the bikes. So with some help, got me on, and I realised I could pedal with my hands. At first I was very weak because I'd basically been out of action for a couple of years. But in 2017 we kicked off and I began biking.
So the improvement in Jerry has just been remarkable. The day he got out the van and walked across to us with not being in the wheelchair, it was just like, it was an opening of, you don't even know, it was amazing to see someone that has progressed so much through using bikes and other activities, but that's what these kind of activities can do for someone.
Although it sounds a good idea, I found out these bikes are very expensive. And I realised if I had a bike of my own, most of the time it would not be in use. I being the only person who would use it. But as time's gone on, I've realised the benefit of going somewhere like Bell's where they've got a number of bikes. You just book an appointment, they take care of servicing the bike. But also, as my condition has changed and improved, I found myself recently being able to move my legs a bit more and eventually able to pedal again. But I've had the ability to use a number of bikes to help with my rehab. I could not have done that if I'd bought my own bike.
I do think that we provide a very good service, but there's always improvements that can be made. So although we do have a large number of bikes and different types of bikes, there's always more that come onto the market that can help. So higher upgrades, we can get more bikes so more people and bigger groups can come along. I do think that's one of the barriers, and unfortunately that does come down to funding.
It would be good if people from one region could book bikes in another region if their region's fully booked. And more days of the week, more awareness of other sources, that's good. Also, they need someone to support alongside. You need extra bikes or trikes for those carers. That's important too.
Get Out Get Active project is an arm of Forth Valley Disability Sport, and we support people within the Forth Valley area to get out and get active. And the three main activities that we lead on are cycling, fun fitness and walking. We have a fleet of around 30 bikes, and that includes both solo and various adaptive bikes. Our partners are extremely important of the running of the sessions each week. Our main partners are Blazing Saddles, Fabb and Recycle Bike, and without them we wouldn't be here today. We have around about 5 or 6 volunteers who come and support our cycling. They support the individuals from the minute they turn up to the sessions, getting them on the bikes, providing them with the safety equipment, and then out on the sessions they lead round the Helix Park. Many of them are cycle leader trained and first aid trained, and yeah, without them the sessions wouldn't run. So our sessions run every year, April to October, and it's on a Thursday. We run sessions from 12 till 4. We'd love to be able to expand our sessions to more days because there's definitely demand. Specifically for 2 of the adaptive bikes, our Fun to Go and our wheelchair loader, that are fully booked this year, and we've already had more inquiries, but unfortunately we can't deal with that demand at this time. We're hoping in the future we can take the cycling from the Falkirk district into new areas, but it comes down to funding so that we can then have that service and pay for that service to then run it. So we are hoping that in the near future that's something that we'll be successful with to then meet that demand. Our GOGA project as a whole is funded through Forth Valley Disability Sport, and specifically for the bikes we've had successful funding from the Garfield Western Fund and Energy Saving Trust to build our bikes over the last year. So we have to apply to various different funders to access various different bikes, for example the e-bikes we bought from Energy Saving Trust, and it would be very helpful if there was a pot of money that could be spent over a longer period of time. For example, at the moment we have to spend it within a year and then give our feedback and evidence. If it was a longer sort of pot of money that we could access when there was various bikes that we needed at that specific time, it would be very, very helpful in the development of the project and being able to meet with the demand at the time instead of having to then go and search for more funding to then be able to welcome those participants to the cycling, which we aren't able to at the moment because we can't keep up with the demand. From when we started in early 2017, our cycling was very small. We had a small pot of money and we bought certain adaptive and solo bikes. And from there, each year the demand has grown significantly that we've then gone to new funders, and some we've been successful with to build our fleet of bikes. And we're now at a position where we have various bikes that can suit all needs within the community, We just don't have enough time to put on, or resource to put more sessions on to meet the demand, and that would be the next step going forward. So the main challenges in running the project was firstly having somewhere local and central to store our bikes. That has been a big barrier to try and run our sessions more than once a week. So that's been one of the main barriers. Again, second to that, it would be having enough of our really expensive adaptive bikes to fit the needs of the individuals. If we had some sort of hub and we had various days, we can connect with many more community groups and partners to give them sort of free rein to the bikes, and that's the main goal. We've got a great resource of bikes and we want them to be used as far as possible and as often as possible.
What West Lothian Bike Library provides essentially is a fleet of adaptive bikes for use by the community and beyond. Started with West Lothian Council Health Improvement Team. They got the funding through the Pass for All, Smarter Choices, Smarter Places. Having first had Blazing Saddles come out with David and such like, and the bikes in the back of the van, and basically at roadsides trying to introduce this to the community. Come the end of the life expectancy of the Health Improvement Team, we formed a social enterprise, so we're a community interest company, West Lothian Bike Library. The council helped us to set that up and we inherited the assets from them and have taken it forward from there. And this is our 4th year as a community interest company. Capital funding, we've been very fortunate through particularly Cycling Scotland over the years, who've been a great supporter of us, and our revenue funding is mainly generated through recycling bikes. We also do low-cost bike repairs and servicing, so that all generates an income, as does our training. We don't have any external funding for our revenue, it's all self-generated. We try as much as possible to be self-sustaining. We plan to expand basically on what demand that we're getting from the local community, such as we're now looking at having a separate workshop to deliver bike maintenance training, particularly to youngsters with additional support needs and such like. I would ideally like to expand the fleet into all-terrain bikes. We don't have many that would cope with going around country parks and such like, and we've got some great countryside around here, and a lot of kids are excluded because of that. The partnerships that help build it, I think you've got to build up a relationship with your funders, and we've been fortunate and we've done some good partnership working and been supported by Cycling Scotland, Sestran, Cycling UK, such like. I think a lot of that is to get that relationship, so as discuss with them, get them on board with what your goals are, what your ambitions are, your vision or mission is, and talk to them in advance about it. And also, you've got to make sure whatever you want funding for, you've got to be able to deliver at the end of the day as well. The ingredients to run a successful bike library, probably no different to running a company of any kind, is going to be your employees, and in our case it's our volunteers. Getting the volunteers to have the same passion about what your goals are as you have yourself, and that's where West Lothian Bike Library has been fortunate in that respect. I remember standing here one day, there was a wee girl, we'd given her a bike, and it was a sunny day. She came up here and it was a second-hand bike, and we restored it and we gave her it. And this wee girl, she was like Zebedee. She was jumping up and down. Everybody, there was tears in everybody's eyes here. It was like, it was magic. And there's a lot of those moments. Going out with the bikes in the afternoon, all you hear would be laughter and chattering going up and down this cycle path at the side of our hub, and it makes it a really nice place to work on a day like that, that's for sure.
Well, I hope you enjoyed those films and the things that came out of them. I would like to highlight a few points that came for me when I was actually visiting. So when we take sort of Jerry's situation, I call it sort of rehab to recreation. There he is, he would like to be able to go cycling with his friends but he feels that buying a bike is very expensive and it would be left in a garage for a lot of the time. And the other point to raise there is that he has been through 3 different bikes already, and if you look at the cost of those bikes, a side-by-side costs something like £8,000, a semi-recumbent costs £1,000, as does a hand crank. So before he knows where he is, he would be spending £10,000 within a short space of time to sort of decide which bike was right for him. So therefore, having a venue like Perth where he can go to and sort of pick and book a bike and then go cycling with his friends, I think that's the best scenario we've got for Perth. And then we go on to Falkirk. Now Falkirk is a slightly different system insofar as it's booked through Forth Valley Disability Sport, who run what they call a Get Out, Get Active project, which Eva will have mentioned during the film. Now, as that sort of has developed, they've sort of started cycling in the park. They've seen that by working in partnership with Recycle Bike Stirling and Blazing Saddles, they can have the van and bikes come to the park and they can go cycling. The downside of that is that they don't have regular storage space and people to man the storage space, which means that they can't increase the amount of people that are going cycling. So they have a very long waiting list. Eva had said to me that they could easily do 3 days a week at Falkirk, but unfortunately they're unable to because they don't have the mechanism to do so. And then we go on to West Lothian. Now West Lothian again is slightly different. It's a community interest company. It works on social business principles. And by doing that, they have managed to create a small business which sort of recycles bikes, sells them on, but they use that money to pay for sort of training and to help people with disabilities go cycling at no cost. This particular system is good because you've got all the communities together where they're actually located. They work sort of together in finding solutions to problems, etc. And again, it's back to we've got a venue where they can go cycling together. So what are the things that we really need to think about here? Well, for me, we need to think about the cost of the bikes. We need to think about where is the venue? Is it accessible to everyone? Because when you think about it, Forth Valley Disability Sport, they're not located at Falkirk. They have to arrange for staff, volunteers, van and bikes to be at Falkirk before they can deliver that session. And then back to Perth, and they've got an ideal situation where they're located is a leisure centre and they've got the sort of North Inch just on their doorstep so they can go cycling together. So taking things further, what is Fabb's vision for the future? Well, our vision for the future is a public or community bike library in every local authority across Scotland by the end of March 2024. Is that a big ask? Well, maybe it is, because we need to think about the price of the bikes. We need to think about where the venue is going to be. Will it be accessible? Or do we need to ask people to build bike libraries similar to West Lothian Bike Library across Scotland? So how can you help? Well, let's learn from the Blazing Saddles network of partnership hubs by sharing resource information and resources, providing a national bike library across Scotland. So let's work in partnership to design a virtual bike library. So this will mean looking at applying for funding for 3 to 5 years, in my opinion, that will then be able to have an online resource where people can book adaptive bikes, where they can go cycling, whether it be schools, community groups, healthcare providers, youth groups. We can then sort of get people to book online. They can go anywhere in Scotland and then they can all go cycling together. Now, let's change lives by lending bikes. Thank you for listening. Please keep in touch. I'd love to hear from you and we look forward to working together.